Hey!
Here we go, brother.
We're here at Creep Recording Studios in Hostel City, USA. It's the Rock and Wrestling Connection Podcast.
Hey now, brother.
We're going to talk about rock. We're going to talk about wrestling. We're going to talk rock and wrestling.
We're on the air. Wow, Jay, it's been a long time. It's been, this is episode number 5, I think, but we haven't done an episode in a while. This is our first episode of the new year.
Why?
Welcome
We
to
were-
2021.
We were heavily quarantined. A lot of COVID going around.
Tons
these
of COVID.
parts.
So we're definitely properly socially distanced. At least 50% of the room has had COVID in the last few months, but everyone's okay.
cool
Everyone's been quarantined. Jay and I did make out in the bathroom, but that's the whole separate
That was
issue.
post-COVID.
But so welcome back, Jay. Since the last time we saw you, you got married and you've become the star of the bump and hang out with the Undertaker.
You know, it's big news when you get married, when you're underneath the turnbuckle. You know, and what other half-ass wrestling band
You can't sit in front of a drum and not
I play in.
I was impressed.
But we have a special guest with us today.
Well, hold on. Tell us about what was it like to be on the bump? I mean, you were on
you
the
know, it's
WWE Network.
Look,
How
when-
many of us have been on
you
the
know,
WWE Network?
When you're me, you're making moves. It's big news. You know what I'm saying?
know,
They
for Kyla Braxton.
they report on it. The Undertaker heard about the wedding, I believe, because you tweeted him.
Well, there you go. So it's your fault.
Only 600 times.
Right?
I think we got him.
Yeah,
somewhere
it was
in the 500.
pretty wild that happened.
We'd like
Yeah,
to wish a happy birthday.
they got
to-
everything they wanted out of you. The wife cried.
Yeah, she
And
cried.
why was the Undertaker interested in your wedding?
Because my wife came out to the Undertaker's entrance music at our wedding. Bong.
So for those of you listening,
Bong.
Jay recently got married. His wife comes out to the Undertaker's theme music. We tweet it, and all of a sudden, he and his wife are now on the WWE Network watching their wedding video with the Undertaker. How incredible
It's
is
pretty
that?
crazy. It's
That's
it's
pretty
a
awesome.
wild ride.
Yeah.
It's in.
You're an
you know.
independent
All right, so
contractor.
and we do have a guest with us.
We have a guest, my old friend Rocko.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, podcast world.
Rocko used to wrestle back in the
90s,
in
early
the-
2000s.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the. I saw you in the early '90s, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mostly in the Midwest, but I made it out to the coasts. I made it overseas. I made it down south. Minor career, but many good stories, and it was exciting to me. I don't know if it was exciting to the fans. I sold a couple tickets. I sold a couple T-shirts. I broke a couple hearts. You know,
Reverend Axel Future.
Right.
And Rocko is a wealth of wrestling knowledge. You know,
So we talk about here a lot of wrestling,
You and
a lot of
Rocko
music.
together. I was excited to put you two in the room together.
already he's making my blood boil with his so-called opinions.
You know, I'm always excited to be around people anyway. So.
Rocko, you came up with Colt Cabana, right?
The Midwest. I feel like they weren't even. I learned. I was at a weird cusp of in the wrestling world that what kind of was apparent at the time, and it becomes more apparent with hindsight. But ECW's coming up. The whole landscape is changing, and where the money comes from is changing, and how people get taught were changing, and I came up and in Chicago, but Chicago itself has very restrictive boxing wrestling commission, as well as the rest of Illinois. So it did not run a lot of indie shows. So I wrestled a lot.
Chicago hasn't caught on that it's a work yet.
No, the boxing wrestling commission was
No,
making huge money.
Yeah, no, they get
So-
25 cents a ticket. So Jay and I, we kind of met through a concert venue where I work at, and the whole reason why our mutual friend would always hesitate to book wrestling is because he had to give like 25, 50 cents a ticket and like weird.
In
hours.
Chicago, I met the commission guys. Well, they were at every show, and if they didn't like you, you would not wrestle or run a show. But pretty much priced out indie shows in the sense you had to have a real doctor there, you had to have an ambulance there, you had to have guardrails, you had to have all this stuff as well as give them a cut and get licenses and get bonded.
And we haven't paid the roster yet.
Right. And so it pretty much, there were outlaw shows. They looked the other way for lucha shows a lot. People did run, but it made Wisconsin and Indiana hotbeds of indie wrestling. And so I came up and in a similar time and crossed paths with, to a certain degree or not, a lot of people that are around, Ace Steel, Adam Pearce, who's on TV all the time now on WWF, CM Punk.
Did you train in that where they were all training together?
Our training sometimes overlapped.
Okay,
and
so
we
you were
worked together in the same feds. I hesitate to even take an iota of credit for anyone's career which vastly surpassed mine, because that would they would have made it without me
obviously,
anyway.
CM Punk's the best in the world.
but it was my anecdote, and I hope he doesn't mind that I say, but I saw CM Punk at what was essentially like a fancified backyard fed that had had a ring and ran, and I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was great. There was a lot of really good ideas. A lot of people were not trained there, and still there was an old school mentality of that's not wrestling. Then as the wrestlers would say, that's not wrestling.
From his bio, they talked about it was almost like West Side Story. There was like a group of
lunatic wrestling federation,
backyard wrestlers who were like gaining a little momentum in the area, and then the indie wrestlers who, like you said, had to go through all the protocols, rent the rings, this and that. When him and his friends are throwing shows in the backyard, and he's making noise, and they would there was like a little bit of legitimate heat I heard back then.
I don't know. I came from more of a punk rock mentality, so this is fine, right? Like break the rules, run it. There's room for everybody. And the bottom line is, I was taught old school style, Carney style. If you're making money, it's all right. So when people poo-pooed it or whatever, I'm like, if they're selling tickets, if they're getting paid, that's fine by me. Then you have to consider it. Now, if you're in your backyard just doing stuff with your friends, dicking around, that's stupid. You're going to get hurt for nothing. That's not Carney. So, but I said to the promoter, Carmine DiSpirito, Mid-American Wrestling, a good Jersey boy, I said to him, they got a couple decent guys, but the only guy that's worth looking at is this CM Punk guy. And Carmine never listened to me. He did. And later on, Punk started training and coming up and working legit shows because he's an ambitious and talented motherfucker. And he came to Mid-American Wrestling, and Carmine said, "You know him?" I said, "No, but I saw him wrestle a couple times, and yes, I did not get him hired. I spoke well of him, and I got stuck with him because at the time, stick the two guys with tattoos together. That makes perfect booking sense." That's the 90s. Not everyone had tattoos then.
So Blue Meanie used to run shows in Philadelphia under the 3PW moniker, and there's a night when the Colt Cabana CM Punk match happens. It's like the second or third match on the card, and like the entire second row is everybody like Jay and I are familiar with. It's like bartenders from this concert venue, drug dealers and their girlfriends and shit like that. We know the whole entire second row. I'm in the second row
CM
that
Punk
night.
fans, straight edge people. Yeah.
I say to whoever's sitting next to me that night, I was like, that was. I heard about Punk. I heard, and even now that I get to look back on it, I saw the Punk Colt Cabana, which was a match that was they ran a lot, so they didn't really know what they were doing. But I remember I said to the guy next to me, I was like, now that's the equivalent of what the kids who saw Cobain over at the fucking South Street, the Dobbs, I was like, the guy went to Madison Square. I knew he was destined. You could just tell, like, he walked in, he had such control of the audience. And like I told you, I had a wild row. No. And he instantly marked this row.
He knew what he had natural talent, and he knew what he wanted to do. And I mean, the highest compliment you used to be able to pay anybody was he paid his dues, and he paid his dues. You know, like that was it. Nothing was given to him. He earned everything he got. You know, so God bless. And he's a nice guy. He used to live right next to my P.O. box in Chicago. I'd see him all the time. I'd leave my daughter with him when I went to go get packages.
That's unbelievable. So when's the last time you talked to Punk?
Just texts every
that's
now and then, just like a whatever, just a friendly hi. We never hung out. We never were friends. Yeah. So
you never met AJ?
What's that?
You never met the wife?
No, after my time. But he's always been super nice to me and everything, and so that's fine. That's
And Eric's with us today. Happy New Year.
Every day.
What's going on? Obviously, he produces the show. We wouldn't be able to do it without him. New Year's. What did everybody do for New Year's?
I stayed here.
Yeah, I actually got the invite to come over. Believe it or not, someone invited me to come hang out.
Yeah.
Eric invited
You invited someone to.
I can't believe
like
I
it.
got invited.
I had like 5 people here.
Yeah,
I should have, and it was like him and all like attractive
John
girls.
was here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there was a couple girls.
Yeah, all the girls that work at his shop. I should have came, but I
But Fish was on.
yeah, I stayed home. I ate brownies and I fell asleep at 9:45.
I went and watched wrestling at the Showboat.
Well, it is the Rock and Wrestling
GCW.
podcast.
Well, that's cooler.
yeah. How was it?
It was, you know what? It's weird because they don't let a lot of people in now, so it's it's socially distanced, and the Showboat is an abandoned casino basically. So it's definitely a weird place to.
No, there's no gambling.
But I love that they're. I'm saying I love this, but I actually hate this. That they're allowed to run wrestling shows and not concerts because it's really the same fucking thing. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's a stage and a crowd, but you call it wrestling, it's fine. You call it a concert, no way.
There's so many weird things like that. You
Yeah.
call it Walmart, you can sell things. You call it the neighborhood store.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
Well, Jersey's doing that thing where you can have like 50 people at a show, but it's all everybody's seated,
Yeah.
so it's
That ain't no rock and roll, damn it.
no.
Don't let-
You have to wear a bag on your head like you're wrestling schlack.
And they stop selling booze at 10 o'clock, and you're not even allowed to be holding it in your hand after
Yeah.
10 o'clock. In a
What?
casino. Oh, my God. Unbelievable.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, that's pretty New Year's.
A lot happening this year.
Thus far.
Yeah, nothing.
Sort of.
Nothing.
New Year's resolutions?
Yeah. Did anyone do any? My resolution is I'm going to stop being as nice.
I like
Too
that.
nice to people.
I like that a lot.
I got to get meaner.
I'm more honest.
Yeah.
You're keeping it real.
Right. It's my down. It's a curse.
I'm going to be more paranoid. I'm going to assume
pretty
everybody's
easy.
out to get me, that it's not just, in general, that it was specifically, and that when I'm wrong, that people are gaslighting me.
Mm-hmm.
So this way I look at it like I'm right all the time.
Well, you usually are right all the time.
If you say otherwise, then I know you're just gaslighting
gaslighting.
me. Yeah, right.
If you get any of this secondhand smoke, you're gonna think you're paranoid.
Oh, God, no, I can't do that.
Well, yeah.
What about you, Eric?
Oh man, I just want everything to go back to semi-normal.
Okay.
That's a
Sucker.
resolution. Yeah.
That's a good resolution.
I can assume that everybody's gaslighting me when they think I'm wrong though. That makes sense.
It's a good look.
Yeah.
It's a good look.
I don't know. I want to improve. I need to get out of my routines. I do the same shit every day. Like I need to definitely bring a couple more things into it. But once we get past COVID, I can probably open it up and do get a little exercise going or something.
Oh. He has a real resolution.
Vague, like in
A
the
real
future,
solution.
sometime maybe I'll start
I went to
working
the gym
out.
a couple. I was doing okay, and then the pandemic. I did stop a little before the pandemic.
I was at the gym this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Steaks.
So
Well, the Rock and Wrestling podcast. We're gonna look back on 2020 a little bit.
we're
this
already
is
doing
gonna
a recap.
This is interesting, right?
Yeah.
already doing the.
We did 4 episodes.
No, I mean of the Rock
Of the
world.
year.
You know, we're gonna
the
talk,
year.
He wants to talk the year in rock
Okay.
and wrestling.
Okay.
And then rock and wrestling.
See, he's the producer. He didn't get the email.
He didn't. Yeah, you didn't open your emails.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
You wouldn't believe it. Oh, so COVID aside, I mean, If this guy would have responded to a text or two, we could have got another episode out. But it
would have been the super spreader event.
Yeah.
Got everyone
It
infected.
would have been a super spread.
You might have saved us.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah. But yeah, 2020 was a horrible year for music. I think I saw
It was pretty much a horrible year.
Yeah, I saw 1 or 2 concerts. I usually see 2 or 3 a week. But January and February are the notoriously slowest touring months of the year because they don't know the weather, the this, the that. It's just whatever. They don't map it out as well. So I saw a couple concerts early in the year, and then it shut down in March, and that was about it.
March 16th, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you
March
what else
13th.
happened that day.
March 13th it was.
13th?
13th.
That was the day we played with Sheer Terror and Carnivore.
Couple days before that.
And
we
then
played on the
they
9th.
announced after that basically no more concerts.
Yeah.
And also, that was the night Dilworth died.
Yep.
Dilworth is the big, he runs the music biz in Philadelphia, and he was a great friend of ours. And that's the day the music died, and it's still dead, basically.
It's
it actually was.
It's like so incredible. Like, this gentleman we're talking about, he's like one of the most fascinating men I've ever met in my life. And if you knew him and you were his friend, he was such a sweetheart to you. And it was a pleasure to be his friend. You would, that being aside, unbelievable what Jay just said. Like, he passed away and the music world stopped. This guy promoted
Everything.
50,000 concerts probably. I mean, you can't name a band that he didn't work with. Sonic Youth, Fugazi.
I mean, he was the Philadelphia music scene.
It was incredible.
All in one person.
I mean, take
Wu-Tang.
you to go restaurants after they close and get all the food you want. I mean, it was just a real sad day, when Brian passed away. And I wish he had got the opportunity to hear our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we can look back on the deaths of 2020.
That's right. R.I.P. Brian Dilworth.
Yes.
So Brian passes away, who's like probably the most music man I know in my life. And also in 2020, the greatest guitar player and the greatest drummer passed away with Neil Peart and Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. True.
There's a lot happened.
Are you guys big Van Halen or Rush fans? They're 2 of my top. I know.
Not Rush, but Van Halen. Yeah.
I know you love Van Halen.
No Rush.
Did you get to see Van Halen?
Yeah.
Where did you see Van Halen?
I saw him in 89 on the OU 812 tour.
Wow. How amazing was that?
It was good.
Where did you see him?
At the Spectrum.
Okay. That's so incredible.
And then I saw
Who opened that night? Putting Eric on the
forget.
Okay.
I caught Sammy Hagar's guitar pick though.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah.
Were you on the floor or on the side? Where were you?
On the side. The only thing I knew that was cool that was like the most rock and roll moment that I ever saw as like being in 8th grade was there was like tons of like pretty girls, all around.
First,
right? So there's a guy and a girl right up against the railing on the side. It was on the side of the Spectrum, and one of the security guards comes up and looks at the girl and like points to the girl and goes, "You can come backstage." And the guy gets this huge smile on his face and he's like, "Babe, we're going," And he goes, "Not you." And she just looks at him and he goes, "You're not going to go." And like as he's saying the words, she's already backstage. Like she's like gone. Like it was like you could see dust in the air. Like
I love that.
She's got Dave's diamonds in her mouth before her boyfriend had "Don't Go" out of his mouth.
So you got the whole rock and roll experience in one show.
Yeah. I mean, but I'd never seen it. Like you read it in the magazines and stuff like that. They would handpick the girls from the crowd. It's like I saw somebody handpick a girl next to a dude and be like,
When you saw that, is that what inspired you to play guitar?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I saw Van Halen a couple of times.
I saw him much after that.
Yeah, Eddie was the greatest guitar player I ever saw live.
Sure.
It's so fucking sad that he's gone. And Neil Peart, Rush is one of my all-time favorites. What about you, Rocko? You like any Rush?
No.
No, Rush didn't do it for
Rush.
you?
No.
How about Leslie West. Did you like Leslie
Yeah.
I like Leslie West
Yeah.
too.
Leslie West
That's
was
another
the-
one.
Was
I
the,
do like a
uh,
Leslie West.
Was the most recent passing of the 2020 year, and then also who else? Reed Mullen of Corrosion of Conformity
Wow.
died earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers died earlier in the year. The gambler. I know.
Vinny Value from Kill Your Idols and Warzone.
The
Gray Area.
Jay's going to play poker after this. As a matter of fact, I know I've heard that already. He's trying to get me to go
What?
with him, so
Where?
maybe we'll play the gambler. We'll see. We'll see.
The casino open or you?
A home game.
Huh.
The casino's open, no poker though.
One of the most interesting rock careers I've always was fascinated by was Bill Withers. He passed away in 2020. He had some of the most iconic rock songs of all time. I mean, literally wrote 3 of the biggest songs like ever, and just like decided never to play music again. And like never took the money. I'm sure he was offered tons of money to come and do some one-offs here and there, you know, blah blah blah. He just kind of like went into obscurity. But God bless him. He what a Little Richard, who some say invented rock and roll.
Gone?
2020.
This is the year he died?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
What
He
about
was an
him?
early
Did you
one.
see that Quiet Riot documentary with Frankie Banali?
Frankie Vidali died this
He
year.
died, but that documentary is
Talk to us.
you seen it?
I haven't, but I've
It's
lived Quiet
basically
Riot.
it's about
I need to see
him,
it.
you know, and about
Yeah.
him and what am I supposed to do now that
Which when they
that-
gotta find the
that
new
Kevin
singer.
Dubrow is dead and we were supposed to do Quiet Riot the rest of our lives and now he's gone and and he's now a 50-year-old man that can't move on with his career. And
But
it was
he
like
did.
all about him trying to, you know,
Who did they wind up getting? Jizzy Pearl?
I don't know.
It must have been
Really
that good of a
don't know.
documentary. You really made it through it.
But yeah, he ended up dying this year.
Also huge amongst us, Joey Image, the original drummer of the Misfits. Would he be the original drummer?
Uh,
He played on Horror Business and Night of the Living Dead. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then he went on to play in another band called Mary Tyler Whores. So that was, I know Jay was a big
Get it.
fan of them.
Get it?
Has anyone heard them?
No.
No, me either.
No one has.
Jason, do you have a poster of them at your house?
Yeah, it's signed.
Did you
got
get
a
it?
trading card.
Did you get it at a horror movie
It
convention?
was signed by the artist.
Well, I bet it's worth more now.
Charlie Daniels passed away this year. The Devil Went Down to
Ah.
Georgia. That's got to be one of the greatest songs, too, I've ever written.
Let's not go crazy.
Ah!
What
Rocko's
about?
real tough.
I mean,
Rush
you should
doesn't
let
make
him
it with
ask him how much
Charlie
he likes
Daniels.
fish.
We don't have to
I'll
get
tell you the big one for the kids was Riley Gale from Power Trip.
Oh yeah,
That was
that was huge.
I mean, because
awful.
that dude was young, you know.
yeah.
And that band was on fire.
They were at the peak. They were moving up.
He did vocals here
Did he?
on the first record. Yeah.
Wow.
Right here in
How
the
about
room,
that?
right?
Creep
Right here.
Records. Right
Wow.
Before I
So
see
in
a
the
ghost.
studio we're sitting in right now, look at this.
heard
Unbelievable.
The
So-
guy who
I don't know who he
unfortunately passed
is.
away this year
Not
from
funny.
Power Trip.
It's not funny.
here. Right. And
Did some vocals. Was it the mic I'm using?
Oh, excuse me,
obviously?
No.
Jason, are you looking online for people who died or are you setting up your poker game?
I'm talking. Don't you worry about it.
Okay, just checking. You know, your wife asked me to check up on you and the Undertaker did too.
All right. She's checking on right now.
Right.
actually. Enrique from New Jersey Bloodline. I don't know if you guys.
Oh,
know,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Hardcore band. You know.
Yeah, Toots Hibbert from Toots and the Maytals.
Yeah, that too.
Oh,
Summertime.
I've seen him so many times. Love Toots. But yeah, that sucks.
It's sort of like weird that this is the shittiest year that we've ever lived through. Not in terms of what's
You're-
happened to you personally, but as a whole. If you
You're
were
not getting any debate.
right. So, but add to that, like, how many people have died? Because it seems like every 2 days, 3
You
days.
know, actually, more people did die this year than any other year. In
No,
our
I'm not talking about like from
COVID.
getting sick. I'm talking about like just in general, like.
Yeah, no, it was a wild one. Eddie Van Halen and Neil Peart. I mean, that's the greatest band ever. Rocko won't go see him, but everyone else in the world will be there.
John Rhys Burns died, who was a Shakespearean actor, but also played Toe Cutter in Mad Max and a Morton Joe in Mad Max Fury Road. and I always liked him as a actor. He died recently, and that was kind of a bummer. That was punk rock to me.
Do you want to just keep going with death here? Because
Yeah.
we could go right into wrestling.
Yeah,
then.
Oh my God! So
Yeah.
lots of wrestling.
Instead of talking about the best music, we can just talk about.
Yeah, well, we'll finish off the deaths here. Obviously, the most recent and impactful was the Brody Lee death. AEW star Luke Harper in the WWE.
I saw him in Chikara a bunch of times. And,
CZW.
Yeah, and always impressive.
Yeah,
And supposedly a very nice guy too.
the stories that were pouring out about that guy after his.
And yeah, you don't
unfortunate-
hear such a uniformity of positive opinion from wrestlers about another wrestler.
And the
often.
internet.
As about a young person, so.
I mean, even the internet, there wasn't any like fools even being like this, there it was very. It's always sad when of course when everyone goes, and then Tracy Smothers passed this way this year.
Love Tracy Smothers.
Smothers.
I saw Tracy Smothers in Florida as the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys. Such one of my favorite. I remember very odd matches. I do not necessarily remember the best matches I saw, but for the ones I remember are very rememberful, if you will. It was the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys versus the PYTs, Norvell Austin and Coco Beware, doing a Michael Jackson gimmick.
Yep.
And they would come out to PYT in the red leather, Michael Jackson with the shoe, moonwalking with the glove, and they're both amazing wrestlers. Coco Beware is great. Norvell Austin, totally forgotten, such a good wrestler. But God bless him, one of the ugliest human beings in the whole wide world. And for them to come out to PYT in front of that racist-ass Southern crowd in the middle of summer, that's when I visit my mom in Florida, so hot, facing the rebel flag-waving cowboy, pretty boy, PYTs, shocked this New York boy so much that I still had to cheer the PYTs, but
Even though he wasn't a pretty young thing.
they were not pretty young things, but I did keep an eye because I did get many sideways glances from the trailer trash there. But it was such a good match because the crowd was so into it. Neither of them could do a wrong move. The slightest bit of cheating or healing got the crowd so hot. It was just amazing. It was really, really good. And, of course, his stuff in ECW was incredible.
Oh my God! And then he ran the Southern gimmick, a post ECW, and like one of the only guys in the business that could still get away with that real crazy over the top wrestling. I mean, he did not hold back. And I don't know if you're familiar with JCW, Juggalo Championship
Yes,
Wrestling.
I am. Yes.
That shit he did in there was nuts.
He was aware of his persona and the irony involved, and he was able. He worked it. He worked it. It was great. It was great. Howard Finkel died.
Howard the Fink.
And amazing.
The
So
voice.
you hear so many wrestlers talk about that was their dream, not just to win a WWF championship, but to have it announced by Howard Finkel.
Yeah, I don't think the WWF/WWE has ever been able to recapture some of that old magic with some of those voices that they've had.
I agree. I agree.
Even Michael Cole, as he's been with the company now 2 decades. I don't think his voice really has resonated. Everyone needs to hear his voice called their WrestleMania match or something. I don't know. It's just
they used to have. It's.
Well, we're sticking with the WWF, and it's January, and the Royal Rumble's coming up. The guy who created the Royal Rumble,
Pat Patterson,
and the guy they say probably helped develop more matches than anyone ever in the history of pro wrestling. Pat Patterson, the first Intercontinental Champion.
Amen.
You saw that match, right? You were there.
I was down in South America way. Yes. Pat Patterson was. I have a amazing interest and respect for people behind the scenes, the people that do the booking and the finishes and the writing. Well, they call it writing now, but Pat Patterson worked for Roy Shire in San Francisco, and he worked for Eddie Graham in Florida, 2 of the best finish guys and story guys, and he understood the psychology of the business, and he understood how to effectively get people over and to get a storyline over and to get a feud over, how to get people emotionally involved. And some of those early Royal Rumbles are masterpieces of booking where feuds will end and start and continue, and just it's this amazing interplay. Wrestling, not known for its subtlety, but the little subtle things that go on in there, and the fact that everyone was talented enough to hold it together and work together, those things told 5 or 6 storylines going on and continued everything to WrestleMania. It really is the start of WrestleMania.
My favorite match of all time is a Royal Rumble. I think it's the second one where Flair wins it. He comes in third. But it's not... It's because of Flair and Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan's calling the match. So Flair's in there for an hour or whatever, 55 minutes. And during the match, Bobby Heenan, it sounds like he's taking all his clothes off. He's taking a shower. He goes through such a roller coaster of emotions of winning and losing and cheering and knocking his head, and you're going through this trip with him and Ric Flair, and then Flair comes out on top, and he's yelling, "Be fair to Flair" throughout the whole thing. It's the greatest piece of wrestling you can possibly watch, in my opinion.
And wrestling and announcing together, like you said, like the voice of a company. When you listen to it when you're a kid or a youth and you're really into it, and you associate that voice, that iconic voice with it. And like you said, Michael Cole is not a bad announcer when Vince isn't screaming him at him in the air.
19 years.
But not just the voice, but he just does. You're not going to have fond childhood memories of Michael Cole's announcing. But that Heenan thing will stick with you because Flair was in there at the time longer than anybody else and doing the most, and not sitting in the corner most of the time or hiding under the ring, but in the ring mixing it up. And it wasn't the third one. It was longer than that, but numbers elude me.
Michael Cole,
some nerd will write in and tell us what one it is.
There's 117 people that listen to this, so
there's that's at least 17 of them are nerds.
They're all nerds.
God bless.
The Pat Patterson.
One of my favorite guys, and again, someone that was universally liked and respected, and he loved the business. He was excited to be there, and he was there for iconic moments. He was there for the WrestleManias, refereeing when they discovered that Muhammad Ali was in no shape to do that. He was there. He was there for the Montreal Screwjob. He was there for a lot of stuff, and Vince trusted him. Yeah. He was a Vince hire who stayed there. When Vince took over from his dad, he was told to keep certain people on the payroll, and a lot of those guys voluntarily left when Vince did things that offended them in the business, not out of anger, but they let alone. But then come the Attitude Era, a lot of the guys left. But Patterson was not one of those guys that was requested to stick around. He was one of Vince Jr., so to speak's boys, and he stuck around the whole time. He was always there advising, even when he was retired. He loved the business.
I know this was a tough one for Jay when Road Warrior Animal passed away.
No, I got the poster in my kitchen.
Yeah, in his kitchen. You get to have breakfast every morning with the Road Warriors.
The Road Warriors were so good.
Yeah.
So good. You go back and look at the matches, maybe they're not as exciting as you remember, but at the time, that was the shit.
When I was younger, they were my fave, And Kamala.
So good. The Ugandan Giant. Oh, my Lord. Speaking of rock and wrestling, put out a couple albums himself. Was a very fine tunesmith. Not in the rock and roll vein, more in the blues and gospel vein, but very good, very adept singer and so forth. And I knew a couple people who did tours with him post one of his WWF runs, and had nothing but nice things to say about him.
And I'm looking over my notes here, and this was a crazy one because we all saw it on the internet. La Parka.
Yeah.
but
So
not
awful.
La Parka.
Well, there's
The second La Parka.
La Parka 2,
Right.
but I mean, yeah.
But who is La Parka as opposed to L.A. Park?
Yeah.
But
it's,
yes.
it was crazy to see him hit the wall like that, and
Yeah.
then find
sad.
out later
From what I
that killed him.
From what yeah, exactly.
That
Was
is
that was
nuts.
like a
Yeah.
in-ring death. That
Yeah.
was not. And many Mexican wrestlers. There are a lot of Mexican wrestlers that we have no knowledge of or who don't make it to TV. And are not famous, and many of them have died from COVID. In a lot of people have died in Mexico, and it's not as publicized. The government does not talk about
Really?
it, but there are a lot of wrestlers who maybe weren't even full-time wrestlers who did have
Do you know
died
any
of COVID.
offhand? Or?
Black Demon, I know, is one, and every now and then I'd be online and someone would name drop one there. They'd put up an example of one of his matches, but I've never heard of them.
Wow.
It really affected a lot of people in Mexico, a lot, and there were a lot.
The
So.
death that affected me, actually, ironically, the most of the whole year was the one that I was probably least familiar with her career was Hana Kimura, the Japanese wrestler from Stardom, just because the way she passed away. She was a 23-year-old girl who ran an angle on a Big Brother show I guess she got so much bully and hate on the internet that she killed herself. And this girl had just wrestled at the Tokyo Dome. They were saying she was set to be a star.
She was very
She
good.
was going to be like, a Kerry Sane or maybe even an Oscar. Like she was so young. Her mom was a pro wrestler. And, it's just a shame, these kids that grow up online, and it's very important for them to keep their, reputation. And I understand it's a whole different, I can't explain what it's like to be a 23-year-old girl. And it's just terrible that that's the way it happened to such a talent. I went back, of course, and YouTubed a lot of her career, which she was going to be a star in the WWE if she ever wanted to be.
I thought you were going to say that you were most affected by Rocky Johnson.
Well,
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I was going to finish with Rocky Johnson
Because you were hooked up with him right before that.
I was going to try and do a couple book. Rocko, no, I was going to try and do a couple book signings with The Rock.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Before,
I saw him in the Garden with him and Tony Atlas, and they were over like Rover. They were good, and I never was a huge fan, but man, he had one of the best drop kicks I ever saw. And that, I mean, he could get such height from standing, and he was, he drew money. People,
and
he was
pioneers for black men in wrestling being tag team champions.
He
back
was
then
he was outspoken and lost bookings because of it too. And Danny Hodge died, who was a much older school guy, big favorite of Jim Ross because of his amateur background. He has elaborate collegiate and amateur credentials, but was a legit tough guy that was not a bully. Everyone loved him, but his feats of he had amazing tendon strength. He could crush apples and break pliers, and his career ended, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm sorry if I get some of the facts wrong. His car hit an icy patch, flipped over, ran on the roof, breaking his neck and crushing his teeth because the roof impacted down, hit an icy watery patch. He crawled out, held his neck together, and walked to a garage so someone could take him to a hospital. And he was not supposed to be mobile after that, let alone wrestle. And he really never wrestled after that, but he was active in the business and around the business. And again, was a lightweight too. He was not going to be a NWA champion, but everybody loved and feared him. And he held on for many years. He was older when he died, dementia.
What about our guy Danny Havoc?
A bunch of indie guys
Yeah.
passed.
I
too.
mean, that was I've seen him wrestle more.
Yeah,
than
I look. He was on that. I think he was on that On Point Wrestling show
Yeah,
that I was
helped
just
a lot
watching.
of guys
was
right
on-
in this area, especially too.
There were, I think there were a couple. I mean, now I feel bad that I didn't research that.
There
a
was
little bit
and
before,
another awful death. It's
We're
such
still
an
talking
awful,
about people dying.
Yeah.
This is a
It's a downer show, man.
Yeah, 20. It's 2020. We're talking.
What are we going
about.
to talk about? People being born?
This
They
is
haven't
doom
done
and
anything
gloom,
yet.
Eric.
I know.
Doom and gloom.
Honestly,
We'll get to the happy stuff.
talking about
next
people
year.
talking about births isn't that exciting. Like,
Right.
yeah, that baby's 3 months.
Right? He hasn't done anything yet.
No,
He's terrible in the ring. His
His
punches look like shit.
I think if we talked about this a year ago, it wouldn't be this long.
Yeah.
It's possible.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't
great
know
input.
if more quote unquote celebrities died, but it does seem more oppressive and it does
more
seem
people
like it
died
affected.
this year, so I guess more people of everything died. You know.
Right.
Last but not like I was saying, just a horrific death. Shad Gaspar from
Oh, yeah,
Prime Time.
very depressing.
He was in the ocean and he noticed his son was drowning, and he went and saved his son and then drowned himself. His son is still alive, thank God. Unfortunately, Shad did not make it.
And a lot of outpouring of support and sympathy and money from the wrestling community and his fellow wrestlers.
Yeah, no, he was another one similar to Brody Lee, who we started with.
And yeah, this was earlier in the year, but you're right.
So many people said so many nice things about him. I saw him one time at a convention. I do a couple conventions now, and no convention since COVID. And he was so good to his fans. There's some guys that are just like real dicks, like Tyrus, whatever that guy's name is. He like had his headphones on. He's like no selling his fans. He's like being like all dickish. And then these guys, they got up, and got in front of their table and stood with the guy. It was just, like you could see the world of difference and what that really means to the fan and everything and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I guess Tyrus is getting sued right now anyway for trying to have sex with some girl on Fox or whatever, and so things aren't going that well for him.
You're not allowed to have sex with girls anymore.
Right.
After 2020. I mean,
So Rocko, you got a couple things prepared for us.
Well, I'll set it up by saying, well, obviously I'm a big wrestling fan, and I was lucky enough to be involved in the business to a very small extent, but I've always been fascinated by subcultures, and I don't know, not to join, but to just study them, and I'll always they're around you all the time, and to see them and to study them, and then subcultures of subcultures, or where two subcultures intersect, is very interesting to me. Like punk rock is a subculture of rock and roll, arguably, and so just the interest in it is, and sometimes when you're in it, it's hard to see. I cults or anything. And just the rules, and a lot of these things are not written down. They're not. It's just traditions and oral history. And I worked in gay clubs for a long time. I was always fascinated by just the culture of an ostracized minority of the United States, the gay culture, and how they held together and how they kept their history together. And then, say, a smaller subsect like leather culture, and that fascinated me. I had to get a job at a leather bar just to see what it's like. And speaking of which, one of the best bar jobs I ever had was working at the AA Meat Market in Chicago, because you could play wrestling all the time. They all loved wrestling.
Well, it's the meat market.
Right? And a lot of them grew up and they're like, well, they really liked wrestling and they wanted to fuck these wrestlers. So I had total respect for that. And if I told any wrestling story, they were very fascinated by this. So that was a good job, and they tipped really good. So, but anyway, the intersection of rock and wrestling, and especially punk rock and wrestling, to me is really, really interesting. And there are a lot. You could tell that there were rock and roll guys who really liked wrestling a lot. And you could see that. And you'd see a punk rock album with a picture of a wrestler on it. And I was like, oh, I got to get this album. Because maybe they just chose the picture, but maybe there's something in common. There's a thread, So there is an intersection. Just for purposes of argument, I wrote down my top rock and wrestling top 5 favorite rock and wrestling
Rocko's
bands.
top 5.
Wow, here we go. Rocko's top 5.
I don't know if these are in order.
Rock bands? What is it?
Should I read the honorable mentions before or after?
Before.
Before.
Okay.
NRBQ. NRBQ managed
Captain Lou.
legit by Captain Lou. Have a song called Captain Lou, and that was amazing. And they would be on Letterman, or they'd be on the Uncle Floyd show, and they would do the Captain Lou song, and that was great.
This for people who know, this band NRBQ would had a song called Captain Lou after the greatest manager of tag teams, Captain Lou Albano.
And he actually would introduce the band and manage them when he was in between wrestling dates in the Northeast. And they put out albums with him where he would sing with them, and it was great. The reason they definitely didn't make my top 5 was they did a reunion a couple years ago. WFMU put it together, and I took my daughter Hoboken to go see NRBQ, and we sat at ringside, it's pre-COVID, and just yelled out Captain Lou after every song, and they didn't play the Captain Lou.
They didn't play it?
No. So
it's like when I go to Fish concerts and I beg for Kiss songs.
Screw you, old hippies.
That's why they're off the top.
Yeah, they're off the top. So they're losing big bucks.
I get it
because
now.
Of this. Yeah.
I totally get it. Well, real quick, for the kids who don't know about Captain Lou, this guy.
What? Don't talk to those idiots.
No one listening to this doesn't know.
That's what the
Captain
interweb
Lou.
is for. Yeah, come on.
He is the epitome of rock and wrestling.
Okay, well here's what I was using it as a segue.
Okay.
How he would staple rubber bands to his face? I mean, did he pick up his whole gimmick and
Hold
staple?
on.
I
will reveal something on this podcast
we
here.
need to know
that this is a treasured secret that is going out to the internet. I let it free now.
Here we go.
Mid-American Wrestling, Carmine DiSpirito would get a couple of his money guys together a couple times a year to bring in a big name, and he'd split the cost with like the local autograph store or whatever. And him being a genius, even though he's from Jersey, he'd bring in old WWF guys, and he had connections through Eric Caden of Hollywood Book and Poster, et cetera, et cetera. So one year, he's like, Rocko, guess who I'm bringing in? And I'm like, who? He goes, Captain Lou. I'm like, I am there the whole day. So I was living in Chicago. They're booking out of Milwaukee. I went to Milwaukee, met Captain Lou at the airport, and spent as much time with Captain Lou as I could just to absorb his knowledge and coolness, and to get certain answers of certain questions, specifically, where did the rubber bands come from? Because me and my friends would always talk about that. As I assume, he had one around his goatee, and sometimes he had them in his hair, and sometimes they'd be hanging from his earring, but sometimes they would just be through his cheek.
That's what I thought.
What's up with the rubber bands? A good Italian boy. Captain Lou, first of all, was hysterical, was funnier than any, and he was like your oldest Italian uncle. He would always have paper towels with him clutched in his hand that he'd put down when he sat down on stuff and obsessively wipe things with. And the thing was, he was always on.
I do that too, but it's totally something different.
He was always on. It was so hard to penetrate his kayfabe in the sense of you'd ask him a question and he was just so used to babbling and diverting it. I'd be like, excuse me, Mr. Albano, I'm a big fan. What's up with the rubber bands? Well, you know, the captain has many looks. He's a big style. And then he'd just go off. So I'd wait an hour and I'd say, excuse me, Mr. Albano, I'm a big fan. What's up with the rubber bands? We went out to Maggiano's. We did the show. I asked him to watch my match. He just stayed in the locker room. We did I hung on to him.
Listen to the match, baby.
I hung on to him. I listened to when people talked to him. He just gave stock answers constantly. But he also dropped many funny stories and was hysterical. And many of the things I've heard before. And the same things he would say in his interviews. His brain was so small, it was like a dehydrated BB. You'd put it in a parakeet and it would fly backwards. And it's hysterical. Like, that's funny the first day I heard it. However, towards the end of the night, after we plied him with sweet red wine that my Italian brothers and sisters love so much, I said, excuse me, Mr. Albano, I'm a big fan. What's up with the rubber bands? And he says, you know, there used to be a bar by the Holland Tunnel, and there was a bum who stayed outside. And right now it's like, it's like I'm shivering, like there's a light on, and I know it's going to be like a movie, and someone's going to come up like a Jerry Lewis guy with an autograph book, like, oh, Mr. Albano, I need your help. I feel like, oh, the story, I was so close. And he's like, there was a bum there, and he had rubber bands in his cheek. I was like, wow. He would take a piece of wire and put it in his cheek and hang the rod. I was like, I have to do that. And I said to myself, should I interrupt the story and say, why did you think, like, if someone would tell me that story, I would never think I got to do that too, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, Captain Lou liked to have a little drink in the locker room. He liked to have vodka. All wrestlers who drank in the locker room, all drank vodka. Obviously. I found this out. I would have a drink. And, you're feeling no pain, so I had the earrings, and I said, I'll put it through my cheek. And I put it through my cheek, and I hung the rubber bands from it. And that's how Captain Lou has the rubber bands. It's his own style.
It's
and
unbelievable.
I was like, that's it? That's all. And I'm like, there is a bum outside that Holland bar. Oh, my God. It just worked. I could have got hit by a car. It would have been like, that's fine.
So I'm going to try and bring this real full circle. Watch this. And you used to go to Madison Square Garden to see the wrestling matches.
See the wrestling matches, yes. The wrestling.
Were you there the night Captain Lou Albano took the gold record across the head? From
Dave Dogg. I like to call him Dave Dogg. From Dave Wolf, Cyndi Lauper's boyfriend and manager. I believe so. But my memory is so bad that sometimes things I've seen on television, I'm like, I was there. I have to study the exact date of it.
So like because the 90 days of that wrestling is what this name of the podcast is inspired by.
I was
the Rock and Wrestling.
The Rock and Wrestling. I was at the first WrestleMania. My friend Vinny Cerrone.
Liberace.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, so good. I was there. It did not seem like that big an event. It was a big show. We didn't you had no conception of it, of the repercussions.
Well, it was the first,
Right. Like
Mr. T was in the first WrestleMania?
Mr. T really? And Hulk Hogan versus
Paul Orndorff, maybe?
Wait, what year
Mr.
was
Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper.
What year was it?
1984.
Okay, I watched it. It was on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it.
And Liberace was the timekeeper.
Timekeeper. It was a great King
No, that was
a match in like 9 seconds.
And but yeah, we went to. I had a friend, Arthur Africano. His mom was friends and neighbors with one of the Madison Square Garden wrestling families. Madison Square Garden got rebuilt a couple times, moved and rebuilt. And if you were an investor, you had perks, and one of the perks was access to certain tickets or rooms or whatever, I don't know, for fancy rich people. But they're
something I'll never be.
Right. The neighbors had first dibs at ringside wrestling tickets. And WWF would run every third Sunday, most of the time. So we would have to we would go over to Arthur's house and get his mom to call up the neighbors who never used the tickets and ask if we could use the tickets. And they'd call up Madison Square Garden and put two tickets on hold for us. And we would be within the first 10 rows, usually within the first 4 rows. And we would go. And we'd have to pay for the tickets, but literally they were like $22. We were so excited. And it was broadcast on the Madison Square Garden Network, which was the precursor to USA Network. It was very exciting. So we got to see stuff. It was, in hindsight, like Vince McMahon starting to flex his muscles. You saw people there that you never expected to see, as well as all these old people that
Andy
were
Warhol was going to the matches back then.
I didn't see Andy Warhol. I didn't see Truman Capote. I didn't see Debbie Harry. I didn't see
Liberace.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he would have been happy to see me too. But I saw a lot of cards, and you look at old matches from there. Often my pimply face is on hard camera. You can see my friend Arthur, who took photographs of the matches for his photography class in high school. So that was good too. But yeah, we had a great time. We had a great time. And there were lots of stuff that again, you saw, and in hindsight, later on you realize that was a changing of the guard. That was the new guys coming in, the old guys going out, But there were no managers allowed at Madison Square Garden at that time. The managers could walk people out, and then they had to leave ringside. They were not allowed.
New York State Athletic Commission.
But I'll tell you this. This was one of the amazing facts later on. My friend Crazy Bob was going to NYU Film School, and he had a friend who was also going to NYU Film School and got a job as an intern working for Madison Square Garden Network. And he got the job of trailing out the cables behind the camera guy at ringside. This was amazing to us. We were like, tell us stuff. We want to know stuff. He's like, I don't know. I'm looking at the cables the whole time, you know? So obviously you're not even allowed in the ring at Madison Square Garden unless you can work around that camera and the hard camera. But they did have a camera at ringside. The one fact we found out, and this was verified later on, was there's a guy at the timekeeper's head. There's a doctor, the timekeeper. There's another guy just sitting there. And it's his job to look at a stopwatch. And if the matches start to go over, he puts a pencil behind his ear.
I don't know. I find that hard to believe.
He puts a pencil behind his ear, and the referee sees it and tells him to go home.
I don't know what that means, but
wait, this is 100% true. And so
I'm just kidding.
And so we were like, really? How did they do that? Now, I think it was because it was being broadcast. So it was
unions.
Madison Square Garden has one of the most severe unions, and overtime costs an arm and a leg. Nothing went past 10:50.
Tell me about the Madison Square Garden union.
Yeah. On all their like half their security guards are off-duty cops. All the construction guys are mob union stuff. It's very serious. So we were like, no, that's not true at all. So, of course, we went to the matches and sat staring at this guy, who's some skinny guy not even looking at what's going on. Exactly like if you've ever worked for a job where there's union guys. He's the guy that's not the steward, he's not anything, but he knows every single rule, and he sits all day reading a newspaper. Like this skinny guy with deep sunk eyes, and that's who this guy was. And all of a sudden you'd see him and he'd pull out a stopwatch and he'd pick up a pencil and he'd hold it up for 10 seconds and then he'd put it behind his ear. And the referee, because there's no earpieces, the referee looks over and then walks over to the wrestlers, and all of a sudden the finish happens. We were like, wow, that makes it even more magical to us. We were like, we have to know about
Jay.
this.
What about you?
I don't know what to say.
And then later on, when I spoke to people who were photographers at ringside, I was like, I heard there's a guy with a pencil. They're like, yeah. They don't do that anymore, but there used to be a pencil guy. I was like, wow.
I heard that same thing about a pencil guy, but once again, totally different story.
Right. Well, there you go. So a lot of times, you used to hear old-time guys, they'd be like, get the pencil, meaning a match is really shitty and going too long.
Well, welcome back, everybody.
That was by the way, that was Rocko's honorable mention.
Did we get through all the bands?
We
didn't do any bands. I'm trying to divert from the bands.
Oh, okay.
But go on.
Let's finish up the bands.
What's the next band?
All right, the next band.
We're gonna finish up the bands, and we're gonna finish up the show.
This will be the show.
Yeah, Eric's giving me he's giving me the thumbs. He
you put the pencil behind your ear.
Yeah.
I like the pencil.
Yeah,
right,
he's our pencil guy.
Anybody can go to the bathroom with that pencil?
I put down Jimmy Valiant because Jimmy Valiant did
The
Son of a
Boogie
Jiffy.
Woogie Man.
Oh.
But wrestlers as Andre, remember when Andre the Giant sang on TNT?
Yes, of course.
The Fish song.
Yeah.
That was good.
Jimmy Valiant, when one of my favorites is when he lends Dusty Rhodes his Woman of the Night.
Oh, that's so good. Big Mama.
Yeah.
The Godfather used to do that a little bit too.
Good. Beautiful Beauregard. Pacific Northwest guy who used to change costumes all the time and would do music videos and come out to his own music. Very influential to a young Greg Ginn from the Wipers, and who cites him as an influence.
Is Elias on your list?
Well,
No.
also, I think I'm almost sure. I'm pretty sure. Well, we know Rancid Vat did a cover of "Testify," and
Which
I'm
is
sure
a book.
Anti-Scene also just did one. I don't know if it's
Right.
out yet, but it's coming out.
Really?
as
Ooh,
a-
inside scoop.
yeah, EP.
We learned it here first. We learned about Captain Lou and his rubber bands.
That was the most interesting.
Definitely.
Right.
And now,
Jesse the Body Ventura that had a picture disc. The Body Rules.
Oh yeah,
Body
yeah, yeah.
Rules.
Fred Blassie's
Pencil
album,
Neck Geek.
King of Men. Brilliant. Produced by Johnny Legend. Excellent album. Really good.
There's a place we used to play in Cleveland called Now That's Class,
yeah.
and you go in the backyard and there's a big mural of Classy Freddie Blassie.
That is classic.
Wow, where is
Yeah.
this? I might have to
In Cleveland.
come the next time.
It's a great
I think
place.
it-
There's
did it
a
close?
sign on the front gate that says "Don't talk to the crackheads" when they ask you for change.
And it's totally true.
That's amazing. The Novas, the Crusher, the Foreign Objects, Pacific Northwest band, or Northeast band, the Swinging Neckbreakers. Didn't do a lot of wrestling stuff, but that's such a good band name.
You like
That
the
is
name?
such a
That is a good
Greg Sage, I put down.
Eat the turnbuckle.
Bumpin' Uglies.
Who's Greg Sage?
Greg Sage was another Pacific Northwest proto-punk guy.
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah. Oh man. All right, but here's the top
Do you want
five.
to tell us about
Oh,
him?
so those were all honorable mentions.
These are honorable mentions.
Just throwing
We
different
don't-
little
Greg Sage
scenarios
gets no
of
airtime.
music and wrestling at you. And
Now-
I want to understand no Elias in the top
No
five.
lies. Because his whole gimmick is he never really played a song for a long time, and I really like that. We're doing the I'm not going to play now. I love that. I didn't really put this in order, but I'll put it in number 5, Exotic, Adrian Street, and the Pile Drivers.
Absolutely.
Okay, Exotic. Those songs are so good, and it's on Amazon Prime Music.
So let's
if you
pause
really-
here for a second. I think all these things are great. We should do like a playlist.
Okay. You can get that off.
Oh, like
yeah.
put a playlist.
And we should
on-
make a Spotify playlist
Yeah.
like of like
To go with the show.
to go with
Yeah.
the show. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
this,
I'll write it down.
Rocco's,
Leave it in. Leave in
Rocco-
Eric's.
I'll write down.
Rocco's Rockin'
Genius.
Wrestling.
Yeah.
Now I cheated a little because I put Anti-Scene and the Confederacy as scum.
Okay. Well,
But
you lumped
Anti-Scene
it all together.
gets the big mention. Gets the big mention. Now
And when I first, our first time together where we weren't friends and we were, was at Rule Breakers Rule in
Mr.
Philadelphia in
which I
1995.
still gets brought up by
Wait, was
those in the know.
Brought to you by the Cosmic Commander of Wrestling.
Right.
Was there
friend.
bands there? Or
Yeah,
Oh
there was
my God.
blood-soaked matches.
was it the murder junkies?
It was
I was there.
Right. Murder Junkies.
Anti-Scene,
Yeah, I was there.
Murder Junkies,
Rancid
Rancid
Vat. Yeah, I
Vat,
was there.
and Snail Trail.
Yeah, I was there.
It was
I remember.
genius.
And Rocko wrestled at it. Who did you wrestle at that?
I just
Luscious Luke Santel.
Were you at the bar? It was in a very bad neighborhood at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
here actually. At the time in
Scary.
'95,
Right.
scary
Yeah,
to be right. And we all went to the neighborhood bar with a midget.
Right.
Yeah, and the people, the locals in the bar, we were with a midget, and we were with the commander. He was wearing a leather vest and a cowboy hat from Cock News.
Widowmaker.
Yeah.
Oh God, Widowmaker
all
was the
this
best.
in this like
was-
super
it was-
hood bar
D. Snyder?
in
Was it D.
Philly.
Snyder, the
in 95.
Widowmaker? No.
They were literally
where
like
what- where
they
was
loved
that?
it.
Barry Windham was the Widowmaker for
where
a
was
weekend.
Well,
that?
that's true.
I went to it, but I remember like not being able to find it, and then like
It was because it was
and we
at
we
the
kept
time
driving deeper and deeper
yeah,
into the ghetto.
You were like ooh, and picture us going to the bar across the street.
but where was that? What was that?
It was right. Wasn't it around here?
I was driven everywhere
it.
like
Yeah.
a
It was
superstar.
It was called what was it called? The Fairmont.
I don't
rec
remember.
center
I-
It's pretty
something.
big.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah,
big.
it was at a rec center.
Yeah, no, it was one of the places you destroyed, so we can't run wrestling there anymore.
The Widowmaker, R.I.P. Literally one of the funniest people I ever met in my whole life. Oh my God, that guy was so funny. That guy
He
was so
emceed
funny.
it.
Yes.
Yes,
He was a
the MC.
genius.
It was a
So what we
great
got
night.
left? 2 or 3?
3.
So here we go. Top
Number
3.
number 3. Eat the
Dun-dun.
turnbuckle.
Oh yeah!
Wow.
Finally.
Now,
guys.
under
Finally.
contract, he wasn't allowed to be on the podcast unless we were.
Right. I get a free T-shirt, right? I
Yes.
get my free
Yeah,
T-shirt.
wow.
If he doesn't tell us, give us a preview about the crippler, we'll throw him out of here.
Number 2, the Psychotic Turnbuckles.
There we go.
Australian band, surf, psychedelic band, many wrestling related songs. Very, very good. I don't know. All I can say is Radio Birdman Who, because I'm a big Psychotic Turnbuckles fan.
And Rocco's number one rock and wrestling moment.
The Dictators.
Oh,
it's a good
The fucking
Yeah,
Dictators.
yes.
Come on. That was, that especially, obviously, that first
Dick
album.
Manitoba.
But the Handsome Dick, close personal friend of Reverend Axel Future. Handsome Dick Manitoba, met him, friends with him, friendly with him many times. Funny ass guy, loves the wrestling. Broke my heart many years ago when at one point I'm like, hey man, I'm in New York for a couple days. We should hang out. Let's go see if there's a wrestling show. No, I don't like the wrestling anymore. I just watch mixed martial arts. I go to Russian bars and just watch mixed martial arts with them. You should come. I'm like, that sounds like a bad scene, man. I don't know. That's a little too heavy for me, But the big wrestling fan and name dropped many wrestlers on that first album and stuff, and knew his shit.
Mm-hmm. Jay, you have anything to add to the rock and wrestling?
My list obviously would be a whole different list. We'll get to that next week.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good one.
I have to think about it.
Yeah, he has to write stuff. He has to get out the cradle.
That's a teaser, though.
Obviously, anti-scene would be on my list.
No spoilers.
I won't give you. But I think bands that actually throw wrestling into their show.
Well, how about The Rock? When he used to bring his guitar out and sing some tunes. I found a new place to dwell.
I love The Rock, but no. I'll put Elias before I put The Rock.
Come on, The Rock is the greatest, baby. Well, we did it, Jay.
Eric?
Wrestling?
He's here to just turn some knobs,
I mean,
ladies.
I just had all the wrestling albums.
Right. Land of a Thousand Dances?
Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah.
Paul Orndorff on drums.
Yeah. The videos make it.
The video
Hulk
is what makes
Hogan.
it, yeah.
Hulk Hogan had.
What's your favorite part of that song?
Vince
I'm gonna
McMahon.
pound on your whippy little body.
That was.
I'll touch you with my pencil neck geek. How about Freddie Black?
They reissued that WWF WrestleMania album like a couple years ago, and I listened to it because it was like everybody was like, I gotta get this, and we just like put it on, and it's still good.
Well, we did it, Jay.
It's super cheesy, but it's still
We
good.
did it. We made it through 2020.
We're here. We just did another podcast.
We got a podcast
I hope we killed an hour of your time.
Rocco's here. He's probably going to come back one day.
Rocco, please come back.
I have more stories and pontification
Yes.
and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Great.
Next episode won't be so eerie with death.
We got it all out of the way.
Yeah, we got to hear about your pop music that you love so much.
Love
Yeah, well,
fish.
next episode we'll do more about the what went on in the
Stuff
figure
went
it
And
out.
we have a couple good guests coming in, and we won't have any
Yeah.
spoilers.
Keep-
But we got
yeah,
some
keep
good
it under
ones
wraps.
lined up
Yeah.
Might be the
from
Rock.
the rock and wrestling world.
Right.
Oh.
All right, thanks, guys.
Together both.
And to paraphrase Mark Twain, of all of our guests, you were our most recent. So thank you, Rocco, for coming.
Thanks, Rocco. All right.
Thank you.
All right, quick shout out to the Wrestling Cards and Collectibles Facebook page. A lot of great people on there. Pat, the king of the breaks, George Wilson, who introduced me to the place. He actually wound up sitting in front of me at a Madonna concert. That's pretty funny. He got Rod Live. Matt, he's got the craziest Bret Hart collection. Michael Lucas. Corey, this guy Corey, he makes his own cards. It's pretty wild. And, just everybody out there, it's crazy. If you need to get a piece of Becky Lynch's clothing from WrestleMania 30, they got it. A Ronda Rousey 101, they got it. Before I linked up with these guys, I had no Bayley cards. Now I got like 35 Bayley autographs. It's a great spot. If you want to go link up with them, it's the Wrestling Cards and Collectibles page on Facebook. Tell them that the Rock and Wrestling Podcast sent you. Jay, we're on some social medias.
All right, let's hear it, brother.
The Rock and Wrestling Connection is on Instagram. It's Rock and Wrestling Connection on Instagram.
It's very informative. You have many people's birthdays on there.
It's all about birthdays on there.
A lot of celebrity shout outs.
I mean, think of all the entertainment these guys have given me throughout all these years. The least I can do is wish them a happy birthday.
How about Twitter? Are we on Twitter?
We are on Twitter. Now, it's a little bit more confusing on Twitter. On Twitter, we are Rock ND Wrestling. So, Rock ND Wrestling. But the great commentator Kevin Gill from GCW. He found us on Twitter, so hope he's following us now.
Okay.
You people can find us too.
We're gonna get him in the studio.
We're gonna work on getting him on the show.
Very
I'm
good.
working on that. Once I see someone on Twitter, I bug them right away.
Now I know we're not on Facebook because it's for a bunch of complainers. But are we on Facebook?
We are on Facebook.
We're on Facebook.
Yeah.
Are we complaining on there?
No, we have a very positive Facebook page. It's probably super rare for Facebook. It's Rock and Wrestling Connection on Facebook.
Rock and Wrestling Connection.
And we're here in the Creep Studios. These guys are on social media. What's going on there?
The Creep Recording Studio.
You can find it
Yeah. Creep Recording Studio on Instagram or Facebook.
for all your recording needs.
What about any stock tips? Do you have any more stock tips for us?
Hot tips: sell Tesla.
Yeah, sell Tesla.
Sell Tesla.
I think so.
Buy Apple. Jay says buy Apple.
I would say buy a lot of stocks. It's what you know. What do whatever the rich
It's all
people
about
are
the
doing.
digital currency now. We're going.
Find someone who's rich
Yeah.
and buy whatever they're buying.
It's true. It's true.
That's my advice.